Hello everyone, my name is Cornelius Nomeshi. I'm a medical doctor from Ghana. I completed my MPH degree at the Harvard THM School of Public Health this past summer. Last year, during my application process, I had the pleasure of working with Dr. Banda Khalifa, who is a friend and a senior colleague. Dr. Banda's knowledge and experience of the graduate application process made it easier to write an outstanding personal statement, also aim for the right test course and finding the right people to write recommendation letters for me. He also gave me a really good insight about the funding landscape available for me for my education. I was able to get admission into most of the top schools that I applied for, including Johns Hopkins, Columbia University, Boston University, and then Harvard University. Yeah, so if you are actually looking to advance your studies and you're looking for a good and friendly coach, I would recommend no other person than Dr.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Banda Khalifa, a PhD student at Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health and an MPH&MBA Summer Scholar alum. I've navigated the graduate school application process, gaining admission into institutions like Harvard, Yale, Columbia, and Johns Hopkins. And now I'm here to help you on your journey. Remember, the journey to graduate school may seem tough, but with the right tools and mindset, you'll be on your way to success. Don't forget to check out my other videos for more tips and insights. Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and keep pushing forward. Dr. Banda signing out.
Hello everyone.
Hello everyone, my name is Cornelius Nomeshi. I'm a medical doctor from Ghana. I completed my MPH degree at the Harvard THM School of Public Health this past summer. Last year, during my application process, I had the pleasure of working with Dr. Banda Khalifa, who is a friend and a senior colleague. Dr. Banda's knowledge and experience of the graduate application process made it easier to write an outstanding personal statement, also aim for the right test course and finding the right people to write recommendation letters for me. He also gave me a really good insight about the funding landscape available for me for my education. I was able to get admission into most of the top schools that I applied for, including Johns Hopkins, Columbia University, Boston University, and then Harvard University. Yeah, so if you are actually looking to advance your studies and you're looking for a good and friendly coach, I would recommend no other person than Dr.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Banda Khalifa, a PhD student at Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health and an MPH&MBA Summer Scholar alum. I've navigated the graduate school application process, gaining admission into institutions like Harvard, Yale, Columbia, and Johns Hopkins. And now I'm here to help you on your journey. Remember, the journey to graduate school may seem tough, but with the right tools and mindset, you'll be on your way to success. Don't forget to check out my other videos for more tips and insights. Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and keep pushing forward. Dr. Banda signing out.
Hello everyone.
All right. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everybody. If you're joining us, welcome to the Scholars Table. I'm Dr. Banda Khalifa. I'm your host. I'm a PhD student here at the Bloomberg School of Public Health. So today we've been joined by Mr. Paul Wong, who is a senior program associate at Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. And I know most people who pass through the Bloomberg School probably have interacted or encountered Paul Wong. He's such an amazing person who go above and beyond to help every single student, especially international students. So today he's going to give us an insider perspective on the MPH application process and also talk briefly about the scholarship opportunities here at Hopkins. So in this episode, it's going to be like very, very interactive. I want you to drop as many questions as you have. We're going to essentially talk about, what makes an application strong, and how applicants can tailor the application into getting into the world's leading school of public health. We also talk about scholarship options, especially for international students, and offer some advice from, from his perspective. So, without wasting much time, let me invite our guest. Good afternoon, Paul. Great.
Good afternoon, Banda. Thank you for inviting me.
Great to finally have you here. I know, like last week, lots of people were waiting for you, but unfortunately, you couldn't make it. But we are very happy to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here as well.
Sure. So, for those of us who have gone through the program, when you probably ask them to mention one name in Hopkins, it's either going to be Paul Wong or Maridina West, right? So, for prospective students, can you briefly, for example, introduce yourself and your role at the School of Public Health? How long you've been here and what critical roles you play here?
Sure. So I've been very fortunate to work at the Bloomberg School for the MPH program the last 22 years.
Mm-hmm.
And my job initially was to oversee the administration of the MPH program. And now, let me see. Okay. I want to make sure I'm in the. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, because
Now, yeah, and basically the mission of our office is to make sure that everyone has the best possible experience, whether they're faculty or students in the MPH program. I myself was born in Brazil and grew up there, and then moved to the U.S. So even though this was not part of my job description, I've always had a passion for international students. So there's a lot of different things that I do. But I would just say list a few of the top things would be, I oversee the staff that serve the students.
Mm-hmm.
I also, I'm somewhat involved in the admissions process and very much involved in the scholarship review process.
Mm-hmm.
I do a lot of support for international students. I have been very closely affiliated with the MPH&MBA program.
Yeah.
And because I've been here so long, I do a lot of connecting current students with alumni. And so, and I do that and provide some career support as well for our students.
Yeah. I mean that seems like a very busy role and very, very important role, and we are all grateful for what you do and the advocacy that role that you play for international students. So I want us to kind of go straight into a major topic. So for the MPH program, for a student coming in, let's say from Nigeria or from India, what are some of the objectives or outcomes that a program aims to achieve for its students?
Yeah, so when we select students, even though we have so many applicants, and we might have an applicant who's brilliant, but if their vision for what they want to do with their life and their background prior to applying is not a good fit for us, they're not going to be admitted.
Mm-hmm.
So what we do is it's a professional program. I mean, you're sort of an outlier doing the PhD after the MPH&MBA. Most people are really interested in public health practice. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so what we really want students to achieve are their own professional goals, and they vary. They vary tremendously. So sure, we have a lot of physicians who do the program. Some of them want to continue on and do residency here in the U.S.
Yeah.
and get their have the opportunity to work here, and in many cases are very passionate about public health in their home countries. I know of alumni who have one foot firmly planted in the U.S. and the other in their home country, and are doing some tremendous things. Um, uh, but there's so many different things people end up doing, and so what we want out of our students is we want for you to to pursue that which you really want to do, whether it's to go into clinical research, consulting, pharmaceuticals. Um, the list really goes on and on. So there's 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 just a lot of options.
Yeah. Yeah. I know, like as you said, you've been involved with the MPH program for some time, and also the dual MPH MBA. If you reflect on the kind of students that pass through Hopkins, what are the typical uh, background in terms of academic or professional background for successive applicants who
Yeah. So
typically make it to Hopkins?
I remember Laura Morlock, who was a dean who has since retired, said, if you've met one MPH MBA student, you've met one MPH MBA student, meaning all of you are different.
Yeah, yeah.
But I can say the about 50% of our students, but certainly a higher percentage for our international students, are physicians.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but but then we have people who are medical students in the U.S. We have other kinds of clinicians like nurses, physical therapists, pharmacists, veterinarians, and then roughly half of the class, or maybe 45% of the class, are not clinicians, and they could be journalists, lawyers, former Peace Corps volunteers, researchers, teachers. I remember some years ago we had a photojournalist who did the program, and her background prior to coming here was she was documenting conditions of prisons throughout the world, and she did the MPH. Now she's a professor in health communications at the University of California in
Mm-hmm.
Los Angeles. So there's all kinds of people
Yeah.
the program.
Yeah, and I think that is correctly said. I remember when I was back when I was doing my MPH, we had such a wonderful cohort of diverse people. We had journalists, we had lawyers, we had people with no medical background. So sometimes people want to know whether MPH, for instance, is only reserved for those who work in a clinical setting, and I tell them no. I've met a lot of people who are not who have no ties to the clinical uh, uh, setting at all. Um, so I wanted to talk about the admission process and criteria for admission. Oftentimes, I speak with people and they say, "Oh, they are interested in doing public health. They are applying to other schools, but Hopkins is not on the list." And I ask them why, and they say, "Oh, Hopkins is beyond our reach. We don't think we can get in." Right. So, having been in this position for a long time, can you walk us through kind of the processes that goes behind the scene in terms of admission for the MPH program?
Sure. First of all, I'll have to say that if Hopkins is willing to hire me, then they are likely to consider you for admission. So I've heard people say, I almost did not apply because I thought it would be a long shot. And not only did they apply, but they were top tier and got scholarships. So uh, never hesitate to apply. The
Yeah.
worst thing that can happen is we say no.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, when you do apply, I would say apply to a bunch of schools,
Yeah.
not only the top tier schools, but apply to a bunch of schools. It's a little expensive to apply, but you might get a very good scholarship at maybe not the number one school of public health, but maybe the number four school of public health.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's very worth it to apply. So um, first of all, just to segue from what we were talking about in terms of professional backgrounds and the admissions process, our MPH is different. Our students tend to be more older and more experienced. One of our admissions requirements is that all students, successful applicants, have to have at least 2 years of health-related experience, not public health, but
Mm-hmm.
health-related experience.
Okay.
So that's not easy to quantify because what does health related mean? So there was the photojournalist who was documenting the situations in prisons all over the world. So she was studying the health of prisoners.
Yeah.
Um, so that did count. If you are working in a doctor's office and you answer the phone and you've been doing this for 10 years, that's not going to count as health related experience because we're looking at not only what you do, but the actual skills that you use, and
Mm-hmm.
they have to be somewhat advanced. So that's one of the key criteria. From my perspective, there before we talk about the very specific criteria,
Yeah.
I would say the most important thing. There's two things that are most important. One is that you just need to be strong, right? It's the top school of public health, so you have to have a good academic record, strong letters of recommendations, all the things you would expect.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, the one thing that people really need to understand is that you need to tell your story.
Yeah.
It's a professional degree, so we want you to say, first of all, explain clearly what did you do prior to applying to the program professionally. If you're someone who, I mean, you may be the smartest person in your country,
Yeah.
but if you don't have a background that, that's consistent with someone who wants to pursue an MPH, then you're not going to be admitted.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to talk about what's gotten to you to the point where you want to do an MPH. Then you want to talk about very specifically what you hope to get out of the degree. And it's not, if you say I want a career in global health, that's not good enough. It's way too broad. You might want to say I'd like to work in an organization like, I don't know, I'd like for the WHO and do focus on policy development,
Mm-hmm.
or I want to work for a funding organization like the Gates Foundation
Yeah.
and do monitoring and evaluation work. So these are the kinds of skills that you want to get as a student at Hopkins. And then finally, you want to explain what you hope to do when you graduate. Because the reason why we want to know these things is we want to know that you're a good fit for the program.
Yeah.
And the faculty who are reviewing your application for admission are the same faculty who advise the students. And if you are interested in something, either it's convoluted or it's something that we cannot provide, then we don't want to admit you. We want you to go somewhere that's a better fit.
Yeah.
So speaking very broadly, we want you to be a good fit for the program, and we want you to be strong. So, one thing I would say to international students is that there's a cultural difference between Americans applying and people from other countries.
Yeah.
So I would say one thing to keep in mind as you're presenting yourself is that most of the faculty on the admissions committee are not experts on like medical school systems in India or Nigeria.
Yeah.
So you have to think about educating the folks reading your application. So for instance, if you took a national exam and you scored in the 99th percentile to get to a top ranked medical school, If you just say, I went to this medical school, they're not going to know it was a top ranked medical school.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to boast, but you want to educate. You want to
Mm.
explain, I took this exam. I was in the top 99th percentile, which opened the door for me to go to the #2 ranked medical school in all of India.
Yeah.
That is impressive.
Hmm.
That is impressive. Don't assume that they know that your medical school is the #2 medical school or the
Yeah.
#1 medical school. You need to explain that. Um, so, so maybe I'm going off track. I'm sort of speaking more broadly
Yeah. Yeah.
um, about the admissions process. Banda, did you want me to go through like the very specific requirements?
Yeah. So I mean, we can talk about let's look at something like maybe the personal statement. I know you've spoken a few things about a personal statement that you have to show a sense of direction, why you want to come into the program and why you need a program. But if there are other things you would like to add to the personal statement, I think that that would be
Sure,
helpful.
sure. So the closest thing to an interview is your personal statement. We don't have the capacity to interview everybody who applies. So that personal statement is really, really important. One thing just to say is length of the statement. You don't want it to be longer than 2 pages.
Mm-hmm.
The faculty who are reviewing your application are very busy. And I've heard actually the chair of the scholarship committee say, if you can't write your statement coherently in 4 pages or in 2 pages, then you can't do it in 2 pages. So that you should really work on making it as concise as
Yeah.
possible, and it should not exceed 2 pages. Also, you should share it with people. I mean, you have someone like Banda, who's an alum, who's been very successful going through this process. Try to connect with people you really respect, people who've gone through this process, and have them review your statement of purpose. Because being a good writer requires working and reworking
Yeah.
what you're writing. So take the time to make sure your statement is very succinct. Um, you want to talk, as I said, about your professional background and your specific goals. Like, so instance, let's say you have a specific goal to study I don't know, qualitative research or whatever it might be. Go to the course directory on our website, go to the faculty directory, and say, I specifically would love to learn how to do program
Mm-hmm.
evaluation.
Yeah.
And then find courses and faculty who specialize in those areas and reference those things. Because by doing that, you're showing that you've done your homework, that you really know what you're looking for. Now,
True.
the truth of the matter is, you may end up not doing any of those things, and that's
Yeah.
fine. But that happens all the time. People come here and then they discover something else and they go in a completely different direction. That's
Yeah.
expected. But we want to know that you've done some thinking about the program ahead of time. And if you specify courses or faculty, that just further reinforces that message.
I think that's a powerful statement. It's up. People often see that approach more with a PhD, where you have to, for example, connect with an advisor before you apply. So for the MPH, people don't tend to do that. But as you said, if you're able to go through the faculty directorate, look at the courses that you think are very interesting, and you even reference one or two, then the admissions committee will know that you've done some thorough research and you know exactly what you're looking for. I want us to talk briefly about the recommendation letters. What do you think it's some of the valuable contents that admissions committee look out for?
Okay, so first of all, you're looking for hopefully at least one academic letter and one professional letter, or
Mm-hmm.
it could be a combination of 2 to 1 to 2. If it's been a long time since you've been in school, it's okay if it's 3 professional letters. You do not want to have a letter from a colleague. It has to be from a supervisor or professor. People sometimes submit letters from colleagues, and that is very much frowned upon. The other thing I would very strongly recommend is if you have someone who's writing a letter, sit down with them, meet with them, make sure they clearly understand what it is that you're planning to do. Sometimes people write letters of recommendation and know nothing about public health or don't have a clear idea of your professional goals. So that's a pretty inadequate letter, even if the person is very impressive and says glowing things about you. That
Yeah.
person needs to be informed about what your interests are. I think if you have the opportunity to have a conversation with the recommender, or at the very least, if you could send that person some bullet points of things to emphasize,
Mm-hmm.
so that the letter can be more focused, I would strongly recommend that.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So let's take one more question in the admissions process. Uh, I mean, can you give us a broad overview of the MPH&MBA program? I know, like, for the past couple of weeks, a lot of people have reached out, very interested in the MPH and MBA program. Since you've been involved with this program for quite some time, what do you think are some of the distinct features of the dual MPH and MBA program here at Hopkins?
I could go on and on. But I think that, when I first started working at Hopkins, there were, I think, about 30 or 40 MPH degrees programs in the US, and now there's triple that at least.
Yeah.
So many people are getting public health degrees. Getting an MPH and an MBA gives you the opportunity to be bilingual, to be fluent in both public health and business.
Yeah.
And very few people have those two traits.
Mm-hmm.
So you're much more likely to get a job more quickly, higher paying, if you do the dual degree.
Yeah.
I've seen this over and over again. So the admissions process is a little different. You have to also take the GREs.
Yeah.
Now, just to say, you can be waived of the GRE if you have strong academic if you have a stronger academic background, and if you've been working a little bit longer.
Okay.
And you would have to. There's a place in the application itself where you can ask for a waiver, and it'll ask you to show evidence of certain things like your work experience and so
Mm-hmm.
forth. They are also now looking for people. Well, the process involves an interview as well for the
Mm-hmm.
MBA,
Yeah.
MPH, MBA, which is not the case for the standalone MPH. There's some good news and bad news. I'll start with the bad news. The MPH MBA is quite a bit more competitive than the MPH, especially because it's a fairly quantitative program.
Mm-hmm.
That's the bad news. The good news is there's a lot more scholarship support for MPH MBA students.
Okay.
So basically every MPH MBA student gets a scholarship.
Wow.
And scholarships range from a 50% tuition scholarship on up to full. So so that's a wonderful thing. So if you are admitted, then you'll get a scholarship. Now, if you apply for the MPH MBA and you're not admitted to the dual degree,
Mm-hmm.
it's very possible to be admitted to the MPH. So you're not taking a risk in that regard. So when that happens, then I will contact you if you are in that situation and say, listen, good news, you've been admitted to the MPH, but not the dual degree.
Mm-hmm.
And then usually I'll have conversations with people who are in that situation. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's quite exciting to know that every single person who's applying to the MPH MBA, once you get admitted, you'll get some form of scholarship.
Right.
I think that is really, really refreshing to hear. So with that said, probably we will dive straight into our next segment, which is about scholarships and financial aid. So before we go on, if you just join us, this is the Scholars Table. I'm with Paul Wong, who is a senior program associate here at Hopkins, and he's been working at Hopkins for so long. He's such an incredible person. Every single alumni or international students love Paul. I would like us to probably maybe take some few questions from YouTube, and LinkedIn. So I have a question from Olabode Ekerin. Olabode Ekerin is asking whether there's is there a GPA requirement for the SOMA scholar?
Oh, that's a good question. So many years ago, I would say close to 30 years ago, I worked for another university for an MBA program, and there was a formula for admission into the program, and the formula was based a simple calculation of GPA and GMAT score.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to the MPH or the MPH&MBA at Hopkins, it's the complete opposite. So if you have a formula, you can be very efficient in making admissions decisions. We're extremely inefficient. But what we do is we look at the stack of pieces of paper, or I guess
Mm-hmm.
now we're looking at our computer screens, and we're saying behind all this information, who is this person and what do they want to do and how do they want to make a difference? Um, that's what we're looking for. So we might find someone with a relatively lower GPA, but incredible professional experience. So everything is factored in. The faculty really take their time to get a sense of who you are as an applicant. Now, so there's no GPA number requirement for the SOMR scholars, but we have 12 SOMR scholars a year out of the hundreds and hundreds of applicants to the program.
Okay.
So clearly you have to have a strong academic background.
Yeah.
So you want to have a good, have a good GPA and all that, but there's no specific requirement.
Okay. All right. So, Olabode, you can, as you've heard, there isn't a specific requirement for the SOMA Scholars Program, but as you may be aware, it's a highly competitive scholarship. So, it becomes a numbers game, right? So, you would have to prove that you are worthy of it.
Banda, can I add one more thing?
Yes, please, Paul.
So in the U.S., there's a severe situation of grade inflation. Like as an undergrad, people get mostly A's, maybe some B's, and that's the average GPA. So when you're applying and you're competing against Americans, your transcript might not look nearly as impressive.
Yeah.
Again, back to that idea that the faculty are not experts about your educational system from your home country. So when you're submitting your application, you may want to explain that the median GPA was this, that just explain how the grading system works in
Yeah.
your home country, because a lot of times you'll look weaker than you should compared to an American applicant.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Until I came to the US, I mean, I didn't know it's A was such an easy grade to get. I mean, elsewhere, your course instructor or your professor will probably tell you at the beginning of the course that in my class nobody gets an A. So right from the beginning, you know that no matter how the effort you put in, you're not going to get an A.
Yeah, just as
So
a funny story, Banda, I had someone, an international student, after his first summer was over and he got his grades, and I think he got all A's and one B, and he thought, "Oh, I must be brilliant. I must be the smartest person in the class." Unfortunately, he wasn't.
yeah. I mean, some pretty much like almost like more than half of the class will end up with a 4.0 GPA. So it's not extraordinary, right? And so I'll take a question from LinkedIn. We have Fiona Mensah. Fiona Mensah says, I would like to ask about the health related experience as a criteria. How do veterinarians qualify since they are public health veterinarians in practice, and the recruitment is not only restricted to public health? I don't know if you get the question. Yes.
Yeah. So if you're a veterinarian, you definitely have the health related experience required. As I said before, you don't have to have public health experience. You have to have health experience.
Health. Okay.
So every year we have veterinarians who are admitted, and just like a physician or a dentist, a veterinarian is automatically fulfills the health related requirement. In fact, pretty much any clinician has fulfilled the requirement, even if they don't have much professional experience.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So, Fiona, you can. I hope your question has been answered. We go back to YouTube. There's question from Clifford Yabua. He say, "Thank you very much, Dr. Banda and Paul Wong, for this informative session. I'd like to ask the qualities that successful applicants over the years have that make them stand out." I'm sure we briefly touched on this, but maybe you can mention a couple.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, especially for the most competitive scholarships, like the Sommer Scholarship, we're looking for people who can demonstrate a history of leadership skills. The Sommer Scholarship is our most competitive scholarship. It is a full scholarship, and it includes a stipend. We like to think of it as sort of the Rhodes Scholarship of Public Health. It's a very prestigious scholarship. I know last year's Sommer Scholars went to the White House to visit one of our alum, and there's all kinds of leadership activities. So you want to demonstrate clearly in all of your application materials that you have strong leadership potential based upon the things you've done in the past. So that's one thing that's good to emphasize. I don't know. Banda, does that answer the question? Do you think, or should I go?
Yes. So I think you've highlighted one of the most important aspects. So leadership skills or potential for prospect of being a great leader. If you show signs of being a great leader or a global or a public health leader in your application, then that becomes like one of the key competencies that might help you. Yeah, sometimes too I feel that if, for example, you in your application you show some element of for example community service or volunteerism, right, that also becomes like a strong point, because in that instance that becomes a differentiating factor between you and other applicants. So if you have like an experience working with communities, going above and beyond to help communities, that also kind of helps. There's one question from. Okay, so I think we can talk about this when we go to the scholarship section. So yeah. So for those of us joining us, please keep your questions coming. Paul is the best person to answer your question with respect to MPH, MBA, MPH&MBA, and scholarship opportunities here at Johns Hopkins. So we'll talk briefly about the scholarship and financial aid, and then afterwards we will discuss the rest of the questions. So I want us to talk about the MPH and MBA students. I know you've mentioned that everybody who is coming in gets a scholarship, but are there specific scholarships? Are there specific names for the scholarship, or is just a departmental scholarship that is offered to everybody?
Well, a lot of times people get scholarships from multiple sources. So most of the scholarships are named, and really it comes down to how impressive you are in your application as compared to the other applicants.
Mm-hmm.
So we have scholarships specifically for people interested in global health, women's health. So there'll be named scholarships based upon the names of the donors of those scholarships to the school. It's not like when I say everyone gets a scholarship for the MPH&MBA program, it's not like a rubber stamp that everybody gets the same thing. You get scholarships. I mean, depending on how strong of a candidate you are, you could get anywhere from a 50% scholarship. Many of those scholarships are called Dean's scholarships,
Yeah.
or you could get a full scholarship. And in most cases, you get funding from multiple sources, where some of the funding is named and some
Okay.
of it is coming from the school.
Okay. Okay. Are there special financial packages that is designated for international students? Is there a
Yes.
scholarship that is only for international students?
Yes, yes. A lot of our endowed scholarships are only for international students. I would say so. We have some funding that is for very specific groups of people. Like we have a very small scholarship that goes to a physician from Korea or Japan,
Okay.
but it's just a very small scholarship. I would say 95% of all of our scholarships are open to international students,
Mm-hmm.
and probably 90% of our scholarships are open to U.S. citizens. Believe it or not, so it's you're actually in a better position if you're international. We
Mm-hmm.
have donors who have given money to the school who say, "I want this funding to go to someone from a lower income country, someone who's likely to go back to their home country and make an
Mm-hmm.
impact in the health system of their home country." So we actually have a lot of scholarships with that kind of criteria.
Okay. Okay. Um, for uh, uh, for international students, do they have to apply separately for the scholarship, or their application is also serves as the criteria for them receiving scholarships?
Yeah, so no, you don't have to submit an extra application. Just simply apply. Let me explain a little bit behind the scenes how the process works.
Okay.
So let's say there's a professor on the admissions committee reviewing 10 applications, or admit 10 people. They are instructed to identify the top 3 or 4 of those 10. And those 3 or 4 go on to the scholarship committee. And then all those people that have been moved on to the scholarship committee are ranked, and the highest ranked people get full scholarships and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So, what does that mean? It means your application really needs to stand out from the other applications. So, what does that mean? When I say stand out, I don't mean stand out in a bad way. Like if you have bad spelling in your statement, that's not what I mean by standing out. I mean that it stands out in a good way. So, I mean, the very fact that you're listening to this podcast is a good sign. It means you're really doing your homework. You're getting good advice. And if you implement some of this advice, it'll make your application stronger than many other people applying from your home country, because you've got more insights on how to submit a strong application. A lot of times, the best candidates don't get the scholarships. It's the people who put in the most thoughtful applications and that are strong that get scholarships. So doing your homework really pays off. Bund, are you still there?
Let me unmute myself.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So okay. So I know that there's some rumors going around, right? Especially with respect to, I've spoken to a couple of uh Nigerian students, or international students from Nigeria, and they seem to think that they don't quite get scholarships as other African countries, right? Is there any validity to this? Is it that there are certain scholarships that don't consider Nigerian students?
No. There are very few scholarships that are for specific students. For instance, we have 2 students a year who get a scholarship if they're from India, and it's a
Okay.
small scholarship. Most of the scholarships that are really country driven are very small. So I
Mm-hmm.
would say absolutely not. We love Nigerians.
Okay, so yeah, I'm glad that you've cleared it. So hopefully, those of you who are watching, you have a fair shot of getting a scholarship as someone applying from Ethiopia or applying from Ghana.
Banda, can I mention one more thing about
Yes.
scholarship? This is really important. We started a new initiative last year
Mm-hmm.
where we're encouraging applicants to apply for external funding.
Okay.
And so, let's say you're from Nigeria and you have a connection with, I mean, I know sometimes that it's petroleum companies have and, uh, a philanthropic arm. If you get a scholarship from them, we will match that scholarship up to $24,000 in addition to whatever scholarship you might have gotten. So
Awesome.
that's very, very important.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, but if you contact me, I will write a letter on your behalf. So only once you're admitted, and if you're applying for other
Yeah.
scholarships, I will ask you to send me the name of the scholarship you're applying for.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it could be a government scholarship. It could be a small funding source from your church. It could be uh, a foundation, a consulting firm, whatever. You send me 3 bullet points for why you're a good fit for this funding. Then
Mm-hmm.
I will write a letter and either send it to you or send it to the organization. And the title of the letter is a partnership, a proposed partnership with Johns Hopkins.
Mm-hmm.
And what I say is, first of all, I say glowing things about you and about the university.
Mm-hmm.
And then I say, if you give a scholarship to this candidate, we will match it up to $24,000, which means your dollars go farther. Everyone has limited resources, no matter who they are. I used to work for a foundation that we were very attracted to candidates that already were getting funding because it made it more likely that they would be able to
Two.
fulfill their objective.
Yeah.
So, I probably wrote close to 200 letters last year
Mm-hmm.
supporting people in their applications for external funding, and a lot of people got funding, and then we matched that funding.
Wow.
So that's something. If you go to our website, and Banda, you're welcome to share my email address. I don't know how many people are on this podcast.
Yeah. So we have 12 on YouTube. We have 60 on LinkedIn and a couple more on Facebook.
Okay, well that's fine. You can put that. If you're welcome to provide my email address.
Okay.
If you're admitted, or it doesn't matter if you're admitted or not. If you have questions and you want to talk to me, I'm happy to talk with you. But if you are admitted and you want some help in getting scholarship funding from an external source, I'm happy to help you with that process.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you.
Oh, and
Thank you so much.
I also have a resource for the last 3 or 4 years of all the people who applied to the MPH, the places they applied for external funding, and their citizenship.
Okay.
So I have that information. I can provide that if you email me.
Okay. 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 Thank you so much, Paul. So I know you mentioned that for the MPH MBA, every single person gets a scholarship once you're admitted in some form, from 50% upwards, right? Is it the same for the MPH alone?
No,
Okay.
no. So
So.
that is the reason why everyone gets a scholarship for the MPH MBA is because funding is coming from both schools. So the
Mm-hmm.
scholarship committee at the Bloomberg School of Public Health knows that for every dollar that they award, it becomes twice as valuable.
Okay.
So it incentivizes us to give funding to the MPH MBA students, just like
Okay.
I was saying about external matching external funding.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, so it's a unique program, um, but everyone. I can say though that over the last few years, our scholarship awards have really increased for MPH students
Mm-hmm.
significantly. Um, I think it's more than tripled.
Oh.
But not everyone doesn't get a scholarship by any means.
Okay. Okay. But I mean, certainly the number of applicants who are getting scholarship now, it's much higher than uh, uh, let's say
Than it
5 years
was in
ago.
UK. Yeah, that's right.
Okay. I think that's very generous. Um, I know you've spoken about maybe writing letters to organizations, but are there any official uh, uh, collaborations with specific countries or international institutions that offer scholarship opportunities for students?
Absolutely. Um, so, for instance, I've recently been working with a foundation in Brazil who's now making scholarships, providing scholarships so that 5 Brazilians a year are fully funded to do the MPH.
Mm-hmm.
I know in Ghana, in years past, there's been the Get Fund.
Yes.
Um, some years there's nothing, some years there's something. There's the Joint Japan World Bank Scholarship, which is
Yeah.
amazing. It's a full scholarship, and it provides a stipend, and it pays for everything, airfare, everything. I can say though that um, so for that particular funding source, and the application has not opened up yet. They are looking for people who are definitely show signs of going back home using the MPH degree to improve the conditions in their home country. So you have
Mm-hmm.
to be coming from a low or middle income country. And I've only seen people get awarded this funding if they're older and more established. You
Okay.
know, if they have a family, they have a professional background in their home country, it's more likely that they'll come back.
Yeah.
Uh, and they don't care about your academic background because they only give scholarships to students for select prestigious universities. So
Mm-hmm.
they assume if you've been admitted to Hopkins MPH program, you're strong
Mm-hmm.
academically.
Yeah.
They don't look at that. What they're looking at only is will you use these resources and go back to your home country.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think anyone under the age of 40 has ever gotten this scholarship. Usually we have about 5 people a year who get fully funded by the world. It's called the Joint Japan World Bank Scholars
Scholarship.
Program.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's I know one of my colleagues. I don't know if you know Osagai.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he was on that scholarship when we were at Hopkins.
Wanda, I know you're going to ask me something else, but before I forget, I also want to say, we're at November 14th or 13th right now.
Mm-hmm.
The application deadline for us is December 1st.
Yeah.
And so if you haven't started the process, it's not necessarily too late, but it's getting there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because as an international student, you have to submit your applications, your transcripts to WES,
West, yes.
who is
West
a third
evaluation.
party that reviews your transcripts, and that's the thing that takes the longest. But if you want to apply, if you can do the first step of the application by December 1st, and that is fill out the SOFIS application,
Mm-hmm.
and which includes the statement of purpose, and it includes a resume. If you submit that by December 1st, that's really important.
Okay.
And then all the other things, the letters of recommendations, the transcripts, they can come after December 1st.
Okay.
But if at all possible, you need to get them done by the end of January. Get everything in by the end of January. But even if that's not possible, if you email me, we can still work with you and be flexible to a degree.
Okay. I think that's I like the way it's a bit flexible and gives people the opportunity to explore all their options. I mean, bringing this up, I have a unique mentee that I'm dealing with. So she attended medical school outside of Ghana. So, let's say, for example, in China, right? And she has she has her official transcript from China, translated in English, right? It was an English speaking school, so she has the English transcript. But then now she has to do a WES evaluation, right? And there's seemed to be some obstacles. West has sent a request to the school in for example in China, and there don't seem to be any headway.
So
So,
that's anybody who has a unique situation like that. Please email me.
mhm.
Um, and if you email the admissions office, the person at the most junior staff member would get that email, and sometimes they don't know, they don't have the experience to work around the system. Um, but if you send this kind of question to me, if I got that email, I would contact the director of the admissions office and ask
Okay.
her to advise that person.
Okay.
So I don't want to belabor this one situation for the podcast because it doesn't apply to everyone else.
Yeah, yeah, it certainly
Just
doesn't
use,
apply. Hmm.
yeah, just use this as an example. Is if you come across something that's unique, some kind of obstacle, please email me. We can
Okay.
get things figured out. As an example, there was someone who applied for the MPH from Vietnam, and the admissions committee decided to reject her because they didn't think her English was strong enough. And I got involved, and I found out that she'd been interviewed by a professor from the University of Michigan, and that her English was a lot stronger than they thought. She ended up coming here, and now she's doing a PhD here in the U.S. So her English was fine. But sometimes you have to take some extra steps.
Yes, yes. That's true. Um, okay, so I think we've exhausted much of the scholarship questions. Um, all right, so the student experience. I mean, you've been engaged with a lot of students. What are some of the typical opportunities they have while in school and also after school?
The opportunities, I think, are endless. Um, the program's very expensive, and that frustrates me a lot. But one thing that gives me some peace is I've never heard someone do the MPH and say it wasn't a fantastic experience.
Yeah,
Um, it's just, for me, this is part of why I love doing what I do, is that I see how transformational it can be.
yeah.
Um, so we have some of the most famous people in different areas in public health working here that you would have access to as a student. So you can do research with them, collaborate with them, and develop a professional relationship with them. Um, I know of some international students who are doing really interesting work in their home countries, and they'll get a faculty appointment after completing the MPH.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't happen often, but it happens regularly.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know. I mean, so in terms of research assistantship opportunities, there are many, many, many. There are so many because, first of all, in some schools, if you're a TA or an RA, your tuition is forgiven or something like that. We're not like that at Hopkins. You get paid to do a research assistantship, but you don't get paid much. It's
Yeah.
enough to help you with your living expenses, but it doesn't cover your tuition. So, so the way this is so beneficial for the system, the faculty love hiring research assistants
Mm-hmm.
because, frankly, they get cheap labor from really bright people like yourself. And the students love doing research assistantship because they're developing professional relationships with
Yeah.
some world-renowned faculty. So it's a win-win all around. So
Mm-hmm.
those kinds of experiences, and when I say research, there's also things that are very public health practice oriented that you can
Yeah.
do with
Mm-hmm.
faculty. So it's not just for those interested in pursuing purely an academic career and maybe going on and getting a doctoral degree. It's more it's something that students very much enjoy, regardless of their professional goals.
Okay. Okay. Um. So, are there any um upcoming events or initiatives that prospective students should be aware of? I know you've spoken about your current collaboration with an institute in Brazil. Are there like similar plans for other countries?
Yes, but I want to keep this to myself right now because they're preliminary. Um, there is the yeah. I'll just put. I suspect the next focus will be on some countries in Africa, but I don't want to go into too much detail right now. But the idea behind these programs, it's not so much scholarships are important, but that's been an outcome of the efforts that I've been making. What I'm trying to do is so for instance, Banda, there's you. I had no idea you were making these podcasts. You're doing so much to support potential students in the program. It's been my firm belief that alumni are an incredible untapped resource for our program. So what I'm basically trying to do is country by country, I'm trying to tap into that resource.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I've been working with the Brazilians is how can the Brazilian alumni support the current students in the program and find outstanding students and provide career advising. And the first meeting I had with them, they said, well, it's pointless to have this discussion unless people have the money to come. And then they were very instrumental in finding funding from a foundation. So that's not going to happen in every country, but the alumni in every country are going to be outstanding resources no matter what.
Yeah.
So we're just starting this process this year, and hopefully it's just going to continue to scale up.
Great. Okay. So I want us to.
So I'm sorry, to answer your question about upcoming initiatives, if anyone has applied to the program, there is a web page. I'm not sure about the mechanics of it. I don't know if you have to have applied or not. Actually, I don't think so. I think you go to the admissions site on the Hopkins Bloomberg webpage, and there's a series of seminars coming up. For instance, today we had a seminar specifically for people who were Peace Corps volunteers and they want to do the MPH.
Okay.
In a couple of weeks, we're going to have a session specifically about the MPH&MBA, where the faculty directors of the MPH&MBA are going to be presenting. So I would say go to the website. We're going to have webinars all throughout for both people who are thinking of applying, and then once people have applied who have been admitted, we'll have webinars for them. So there's a whole series of webinars.
Okay. All right. So I want us to go back to question section. There's several questions on LinkedIn. Let's take. First of all, most of the questions are, thanking you, Paul, for coming on the podcast to give us such an incredible information. Where you typically not get it online, right? So I think this has been very resourceful conversation. There's a question from Olaoluwa. Olaoluwa says, if I apply for the MPH MBA and only get into the MPH, can I get funding opportunities for the MPH?
Yes, it's just not guaranteed. Yeah, everyone who applies for the MPH is considered for funding, and your application by itself is the application for a scholarship. So you would definitely be considered for a scholarship if you apply for the MPH&MBA and are only admitted to the MPH.
Okay.
And it might be, it's not because you're a weak candidate. It could be that the MPH&MBA is looking for someone who has more experience than you have. But from an MPH perspective, you're really outstanding. You're just younger. And so you might get a very good scholarship from the MPH program.
Yeah. Okay. So, Olaoluwa, hopefully you've gotten your answer. So somebody wants to know what's the average class size for the MPH and the MPH&MBA program at Hopkins? This is from
So
Desmond Kojo.
yeah, so the average size of the full-time MPH class, it varies between like 220 and 270 students, so maybe on average 250. And then for the MPH MBA, it's about 20 students a year, maybe 18 to 24. Um, and then we'll have the year one students and the year two students. So at any one time, we have about 50 students, 40 to 50 MPH MBA students.
Okay. All right. And we have a question from Salama with hopefully I'm mentioning your name correctly. Forgive me. Salama with Sharehouse. So she wants to know, can I know like we spoke briefly about leadership potential, and she wants to know that can it can the leadership role be outside of public health? For example,
Absolutely.
mm-hmm.
Go
Yeah,
ahead
for
with the
example,
example.
leadership in healthcare setting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I don't want to overemphasize leadership. I mean, I think leadership is very important for the Somer Scholarship, but only a fraction of the people who get scholarships get Somer scholarships.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it just it just depends upon, you want to emphasize the unique aspects of your background as a candidate.
Yeah.
Maybe you were not in a significant leadership role, but maybe you've been someone who's had an impact in making change in an organization, or I don't know, just focus on the positive impact you've had. Or maybe your story is, I mean, I know of a person who's in the program who is from Saudi Arabia, but from a very modest background, Bedouin family, grew up basically in the desert, and it has a very compelling story.
Mm-hmm.
That they're starting from such humble beginnings, and just everyone brings something different to the table when they apply.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll take a couple more. I know our time is up. Maybe we'll take a few more questions and then we can let you go, Paul. This is from Marta Flores. She says, "Thank you so much for the helpful session. Do you recommend we apply by December 1st or January 15th?"
Submit your initial application by December 1st, which is the SOFIS application, your personal statement, and your resume or CV. Do that by December 1st. I strongly recommend it. And then make sure the rest of your materials come in by mid-January.
Okay. So yeah, so you can submit your statement of purpose, your CV and the other components, and then your recommendations can come in later by mid-January.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
That's
I can
good to
say,
know.
I've been working with the scholarship committees for over 20 years. And even though if you apply late, you're still considered for scholarships, they have a clear bias based upon many years of doing this, that the people who get their applications in early, that group, speaking broadly, tends to be stronger. So they make more scholarship awards to the people who apply early than they do. They still make scholarship awards for people who apply a little bit late,
Yeah.
but not as many scholarships.
Okay. When you say early, do you mean anybody who submits before the priority deadline, or
Yes, someone who submits that initial application by December 1st.
Okay. Okay.
Now, if you apply by December 4th, I would consider that the same thing. But if you don't submit your application until January, no, that's not considered early.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's two dates to consider. When do you initially submit your application? And when is your application complete? When has everything come in? Those are two different dates.
Okay.
Make sure that first date is by December 1st.
Mm-hmm. All right. All right. Yeah, I think that makes it very clear. That makes it very clear. Someone there's Bright Blessing. She says, "Thank you, Bandai and Paul, for organizing this insightful session. I have just recently rounded up my MPH in the UK, and I'm presently considering going for a DRPH program. Does Johns Hopkins give scholarship to doctoral students?" I think I don't know, Paul, if you have any insights, but we've had a couple of sessions on the DRPH program. But yeah, Paul, maybe you can.
So, as I understand it, the DRPH does not provide scholarships. However, the PhD provides full scholarships.
Mm-hmm.
The DRPH is geared more for people who want to do the program on a part-time basis. And a lot of people who do the DRPH have some strong professional experience and are leaders in their organizations. And often those organizations are paying for their doctoral degree
Okay.
while they're working. And so the DRPH, instead of doing a formal thesis, you're actually doing projects that are beneficial to your employer. Um, so they're two very different degrees.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
Okay.
and one of the major differences is the source of funding.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, Bright Bless, and hopefully you've gotten your answers. There's question from Mohammed Mohaji. Mohammed Mohaji is okay. He's asking what is West evaluation. I mean, I have an extensive video on it, about 40 minutes tutorial video that you can check it up. West evaluation is basically like a process where you send your transcript and they standardize it against the US version to provide you with a course by course evaluation. So I think that is required if you are applying through so fast. Most of the schools require that you do it. Yeah. So I think we've exhausted most of the questions. There are a couple on YouTube, which I think we've already addressed in our discussion. Somebody wants to know from Guatemala. She wants to know, please, how long do I have to wait after submitting my application before my admission decision?
So we have people who've already been admitted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the way it works is once your application's complete, we review it. And it all comes down to when it's complete, when we get it. So for those of the applications that came in and they're finished and they're complete and they've already arrived in our office, the turnaround time is very quick. It might be 2 weeks. But if your application is not complete until, let's say, December 15th, that's the case for 90% of our applicants. And that's when it takes much longer. It might take anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks before you get an answer. But the good news is, if you email me and just say, where's my application? I'm happy to figure that out. And if we need to move things along more quickly, like if sometimes there are faculty who are reviewing applications and they haven't met their deadlines, I'll just email the professor and say, I just got an email from this person and wondering if you could move along with your review. So I'm happy to help in that kind of way.
Awesome. That's really helpful. Okay, last two questions. One question from Inshira. Inshira wants to know, if we don't get funding from the school, are there other opportunities to finance our graduate school journey?
So there's the external funding that I was talking about, which is money that comes from foundations, people's governments, private organizations, sometimes pharmaceutical companies or consulting organizations. And again, we'll match funding from those organizations. And if you email me, I can send you a list of all those organizations with for people who've applied for this funding and their citizenship, so you can know, because some of the funding is very country specific. Secondly, we do have there are organizations that are not affiliated with Hopkins that provide loans, and they don't necessarily require a cosigner, but they're high interest. So I know people use those loan programs. If you get a scholarship and then you need to take out additional loans, that might be okay if it's not a huge amount.
Yeah. Actually, I think last couple of months, I had the director of finance from Hopkins on the show. So I mean, she was very she went in extensively about, applying for student loans and other things. So you can check out that conversation for a detailed response. Very last question. This I've had a couple of questions on something with regards to CSS profile. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It seems to be like a scholarship award. Like it seems to be like a platform where you fill in a profile, and then either you are considered for a scholarship or something. But I don't see anybody applying to Hopkins who has to fill out this profile.
Yeah, I know a little bit about this, Banda. So the CSS profile is something that's set up by our financial aid office. Our
Mm-hmm.
financial aid office primarily deals with U.S. citizens who are getting loans to the federal government. But
Okay.
they also have this CSS program, and admittedly, I'm not an expert with it. But what I understand is you fill out a form, and it's to apply for need-based financial aid, and there's very limited funding available for people who fill out this form. But I don't know much more than that.
Okay. Okay. All right. So, in essence, if you don't fill out this profile, I mean, you will still be considered for the scholarships that you've mentioned, right?
Yeah, so I would say the vast proportion of scholarships that are coming from the school are merit based. And just by applying, you're applying for those scholarships. Your application for admission means you're being considered for those scholarships. I'm pretty sure that once you're admitted, you'll get information about this CSS scholarship, needs based scholarship. I would not worry about it now until you're admitted.
Okay. Okay. All right. So, is there a possibility for you to get both the need based
Yes,
and the merit based scholarship?
yes.
Oh, okay, okay, that's good to know. Yeah, Paul, thank you so much for staying with us. It's been 1 hour 25 minutes. Any last words for our international students and other prospective applicants?
I guess the only thing I want to add is that I know in other cultures, people are sometimes hesitant to be in touch with faculty or staff. Um, yes, I've been here forever, but I am happy to answer questions. There's no such thing. In my 22 years, there's only been one person who emailed me too much. And I told her she was emailing me too much. Um, and what she was doing is she would ask me something, and then if I didn't answer within an hour, she would send the email again, and I would get all these emails from her in one day. Um, but other than her, I've never gotten too many emails from anybody. My
Mm-hmm.
point being is, feel free to email me. Almost any question you might have. If I don't know the answer, I probably know someone who does, and I'll connect you with that person.
Yeah, yeah, Paul, thank you so much. I mean, this has been one of the most insightful conversations that I've had on the platform. So hopefully, if you're listening to us, you take full advantage of this conversation. So, Paul, thank you so much. I'll be sharing your email with those who attended. So you should be looking out for a lot of questions. Thank you so much. Hopefully, I'll get to see you on campus one of these days. So enjoy the rest of your week.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure. Have a
Sure.
great weekend.
You too, Paul. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
All right. So if you joined us, I mean, this has really been very, very, very informative. As I said, Paul is one person who literally knows almost everything about the MPH application and also the MPH&MBA application and scholarship award process. So if you joined us late, please consider rewatching this. So this will be available permanently on my YouTube channel, where you can always go back and watch it. We've delved into a lot of critical things, from application to the admission process to how the mechanisms of scholarship awards. So take your time, go back, watch it. And one good thing is that all your materials don't have to be ready by December 1st. You can apply, you can submit your initial profile on SOFAS, your statement of purpose, and your resume. And then if your recommenders haven't submitted it by December 1st, it won't really go against you that much because you've already submitted your initial application. But then tell them to submit by mid January, so that you'll be considered for a scholarship. The good thing here is that anybody who is applying for the MPH and MBA program, once you get admitted, you are given a scholarship guaranteed, at least 50% scholarship, right? So from 50% all the way to full scholarship. And another thing that is that he mentioned that I thought was very, very impressive was the fact that over the past couple of years, Hopkins have tripled their scholarship offers for their applicants. So I know like Hopkins is one of the most generous institutions of public health. Almost anybody I know here has some form of scholarship. So don't self-reject, as I always say. Apply and then see how it goes. Anyway, this is the scholars table. I've been your host, Dr. Banda Khalifa. If you're new on YouTube, leave a thumbs up, subscribe, and share this conversation with your colleagues. If you joined us from LinkedIn, follow for more. I'll be sharing the details of Paul very soon, so that you can reach out personally to him if you have any questions. If your West evaluation is not going as well, you can reach out directly to him, and then they'll find a way of reviewing your application, even if your West profile is not ready. All right. So hopefully all your questions have been answered. If you have any questions that you'd like to get answered, you can DM me on LinkedIn, and then we can meet tomorrow for our grad chat central, and then we can sort out those questions. So I know there are a couple of questions. Let's see if I can answer those ones before we go. Mariam Nabia. So Mariam Nabia wants to find out, thank you for this insightful session. Does that mean you can submit application even when your recommendation letters are yet to be submitted to SOFAS? Yes, Mariam. From our conversation with Paul, that is exactly what it means. So if, for example, you've spoken to your recommenders and they are saying their recommendation is not ready yet by December 1st, you should go ahead and hit submit on SOFAS. Submit your statement of purpose, your resume, and all those short format questions. And then once you submit, try and remind them to submit the entire application, to submit their recommendation by mid-January, right? So you can submit your application by December 1st, and then your recommendations can go in later, let's say early first week January. So yes, that is what he meant by that. Enoch Achampong. Enoch wants to find out whether you need approval of the supervisor before you apply for a PhD. Okay, so I mean this was mainly for the MPH. PhD at Hopkins, no, not necessarily. You don't have to get approval of a supervisor before you apply for a PhD. But in other programs, other jurisdictions, you may have to. So it's entirely different, and you have to understand or know the program that you're applying to. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Hello everyone, my name is Cornelius Nomeshi. I'm a medical doctor from Ghana. I completed my MPH degree at the Harvard T.H. School of Public Health this past summer. Last year, during my application process, I had the pleasure of working with Dr. Banda Khalifa, who is a friend and a senior colleague. Dr. Banda's knowledge and experience of the graduate application process made it easier to write an outstanding personal statement, also aim for the right test scores and finding the right people to write recommendation letters for me. He also gave me a really good insight about the funding landscape available for me for my education. I was able to get admission into most of the top schools that I applied for, including Johns Hopkins, Columbia University, Boston University, and then Harvard University. Yeah, so if you are actually looking to advance your studies and you're looking for a good and friendly coach, I'll recommend no other person than Dr.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Banda Khalifa, a PhD student at Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health and an MPH&MBA Summer Scholar alum. I've navigated the graduate school application process, gaining admission into institutions like Harvard, Yale, Columbia, and Johns Hopkins. And now I'm here to help you on your journey. Remember, the journey to graduate school may seem tough, but with the right tools and mindset, you'll be on your way to success. Don't forget to check out my other videos for more tips and insights. Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and keep pushing forward. Dr. Banda signing out.